I wanted to share an analogy of how God has taught me more about Him and the gospel through a desire I have to get into better shape. Now, if you've watched my video on faith, you've seen these two images before, and this is me at one point in my life, and this is me at a later point in my life. And I took a journey from being obese and weak to at least maybe I was still weak here, but at least I was no longer overweight or obese. And my goal is to become and look more like this guy. Now, this is just an AI generated image of a really buff and ripped guy. Um, and so lately, I've been on a program where I've been lifting weights heavily for weeks on end. I think I'm up to, I do about 16 weeks. And then now I'm in the cycle of cutting, which means just rather than a calorie surplus where I'm trying to gain weight and gain muscle, now I'm trying to preserve muscle and lose fat. And so I'm intentionally losing and dropping the pounds. And so I wanted to share some of the ways that God has taught me more about Him and more about the gospel and more about spirituality. So just a few things I've learned is just an observation is when I was fat and weak several years ago here, there were several patterns that emerged in my life. So I think I've mentioned that I avoided mirrors for years on end. Um, and I tried to avoid reality. I tried to hide. I hated to be in public places. I'd go do the things I had to do. I'd go to work, but I'd come home and I would not want to go out in public. I would not want to be seen. I was ashamed. And I was hidden. It affected all aspects of my life where I was just simply not confident to be out with other people because it was uncomfortable. um, I felt judged, and it was also just uncomfortable to be able to move around with all that extra weight on me. And so, anyway, that'll be something I'll talk about in a minute, and what God has taught me about that. Another thing that I remember from when I was fat and weak is um, I assumed, so I would see people like this, and I assumed I wasn't far off from them. Or, I mean, the first assumption you have is when you're fat and weak is that people like this are just, blessed into the genetic lottery, and, they're just born this way and they didn't have to do anything to, get the muscles or the shape or the physique that they had. The first assumption is, well, I just got bad genes. I'm just destined to be fat and there's nothing I can do about it. Or this person just got good genes and I'm sure he eats pizzas and hamburgers and drinks soda all the time. And he's just naturally has a better metabolism and his body just naturally has formed more muscles than mine. So we try to make everyone else, in our minds anyway, the same as we are. And so we assume we're as good as everyone around us, even when we see results that are different from what we have. And we just assume, well, that's just how life is. Or at least I did that. Um, and what I've learned through this, the other thing that I've noticed is as I've gotten in better shape, so I don't look like this guy. I like to look more like this guy. But one thing I've noticed is the more um, the better shape I get into, the more you recognize other people who are in good shape. Whereas before, when I wasn't focused on becoming better, I simply you notice other people, but you just don't think anything of it. It's not on your radar. You just assume everybody is just like you. And then also, like the better in shape I get, the more you notice how other people, how out of shape almost everyone is in America, and how everybody just assumes it's the normal because that's how everyone is, and that they aren't. It's the same thing I was doing when I was fat and weak. It's just assuming I wasn't far off from everyone else, or I was basically the same. There were minor differences in how we lived, but basically the same. But what I've learned is the better in shape I get, the more I recognize others who are in good shape. And the more I realize the effort that goes into achieving physical results like this. So, like for a guy like me in this picture to transform into a guy like this in this picture, I've so I'm an engineer and I do spreadsheets and I'm kind of a geek, but I've done quite a bit of research into consistent training and weightlifting and bulking and cutting. And I've looked into, so a guy like this, say he's my height, 6'3", and say he weighs 235 pounds and he's got, looks like about 7% body fat. And so I ran projections on if I did consistent 16-week bulking cycles and then, 7 or 8 week cutting cycles over and over and over, the expected gains and losses that I could expect, how long it would take me to transform from this skinny guy into this buff guy. And I was a little shocked to see best case scenario would be 3.5 to 4.5 years, and a more realistic scenario would be 5 to 6 to even 7 years. And this is consistent, 4 days a week, training in the gym, very strict diets, and very strict monitoring of protein intake and fat intake and carb intake and balancing that, especially prioritizing the protein, and then very strict calorie surplus while bulking, and then very strict calorie deficit while cutting, and doing this for 3 to 7 years um, consistently to gain a physique like this. And so just realizing that. And so now when I see people who are more in shape, because you see them, I have a lot more appreciation for the dedication and the effort and honestly the faith that they've had to exercise to get the results that they have. It's consistent effort and consistent dedication over time is the only way to get it. Okay, so what does any of this have to do with God or with how He is teaching? And one of the things that He's taught me over the past few months through this training journey that I'm currently on is that it's the same thing spiritually, that most of us on earth are fat, overweight, and weak spiritually. Like we're just simply don't have the spiritual strength that we see examples of in the scriptures. Like when you read the scriptures, you read about Nephi having these visions and dreams, or you read about healings, or you read about gifts of the Spirit, and able the gift of discernment and able to discern people's thoughts, or you read about people who testify that they have had Christ appear to them, that they have spoken with him face to face. We think while we're fat and overweight and weak, we think we're not far off from these giants, these spiritual giants who literally have a face to face relationship with Jesus Christ. And what I've learned, it's the same thing as the physical. As I've tried to progress spiritually and I've put in more effort at becoming more like Jesus, at taking upon myself his name and his character, I'm able to see more of the path that these spiritual giants have had to take to establish a greater relationship with him. They've done the work to become more like him. And that work does not happen overnight. You don't go from 70 pounds overweight and significantly weak to, super buff and ripped strongman overnight. It takes consistent effort and dedication over time. And it's the same thing spiritually. As I've been progressing spiritually, and I am more aware of people who are putting in the effort. And what you see is these people simply refuse to lie. They refuse to be dishonest about anything in their lives, regardless of the consequences. These people seem like extreme people, but that's the price that they pay, and that's the price that any of us who want the spiritual blessings that we read about in the scriptures must pay if we want a relationship with Jesus Christ. If you seriously want a face-to-face relationship with him, which is promised in the scriptures that anyone who has faith can have, then you have to actually have the faith. You actually have to take the steps. You have to put in the consistent effort over time, and you have to get on the path to becoming like Him. And so I think one of the reasons that so many of us, most of the world, is just obese and weak spiritually is because we've been taught that the path is easy, that all you have to do is say a prayer, or all you have to do is, pass a temple recommend interview and go to the temple regularly. What we're not taught in religion or in most of the world is that you actually have to change. Change is hard. You have to change. You have to become better. You have to become more like Him. And um, as you get on the path, He'll lead you directly towards Him. He will put the things in your path that you need to overcome or that you need to change about yourself to become a spiritual giant, to become like Him. He's up there, I assume up, um, and He just wants to bless us with the greatest gifts that He has. But He can't bless us unless we willingly put ourselves through the process of becoming more like Him. The name, the character of Jesus Christ is literally the key to the greatest joy. And so we have to take upon ourselves His name so that God can bless us with the blessings that He enjoys. I hope this is helpful.